Welcome back to Balancing Acts, where we're talking with Bobby Klink about legal stuff and protecting your online business. Bobby, how did your previous experience shape your approach to developing plainly legal?
Well, I'll try to keep this short because I could make it a very long story. But after I had decided to try to transition out of my law firm practice, I was looking for what I could do. And I recognized there was a need to help small business owners deal with the legal stuff before it became a problem, because there was this problem I saw kept happening was people would come to me after a problem had come up, and it was at a point where I would look at them and say, well, you could hire me, but it's going to cost you more to pay me now than to just pay the other side. And it didn't make a lot of sense. And a lot of times that was caused by them going without the legal stuff at the beginning. So early on, I said, you know what? I'm going to create training and legal templates and sell that to people. That was my first idea. I saw some other people who were doing that. And obviously there were big players like LegalZoom who was doing that for a broad market. And so that was my initial idea. And that's what I did from 2017 through 2022. That was my business exclusively, was doing that. Now, very quickly I realized trying to sell legal training to business owners, not a good plan. They don't want to pay for the training. They want the problem solved. And so I started giving the training away for free and selling the templates. But last year, at the beginning of the year, I just was looking around and I said, I think we need a bigger solution here, because getting it in writing is one thing people need to do, but that's not everything. And I knew that. From as a lawyer, I knew that all the way. And so I started thinking bigger. And that's when I started thinking about creating a software solution that would allow for a much broader solution to help people understand what they needed to get solved and to help them actually solve the problem. So that's kind of the backstory of how I entered this space and then eventually said, you know what? I need to do something bigger. I need to create a software solution.
Great. And I have tested the plainly legal as well as the legal templates previous to that. So I'm very familiar with your work. How are some of the ways small business owners can use these templates? Do they actually take the place of an attorney? What should we think about as we're using them?
So I've always told people that when you think about legal protection, you should think about levels of good. There is no question that having a lawyer who understands your business and your type of business and your circumstances exactly, that'll be the best solution to getting an agreement. There is no question. I'm never going to argue to the opposite. But what I'll tell you is that if you had to do that for everything, every agreement you need in your business, you're not talking thousands of dollars, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars in a year. And that's just reality. And for most businesses, that's not doable. That's not feasible. And one of the things that's very kind of complicating here is that the type of businesses I serve, coaches, course creators, consultants, et cetera, they happen to have entered an area of business that creates all kinds of legal issues. And it's not like you solve it once and it's done. So if you create a brick and mortar business somewhere, oftentimes you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're not going to need new agreements. You're not going to need new things. You're going to get it solved at the beginning and you're done. The businesses I serve tend to be evolving, changing over time. And so the reality is they just can't afford it. And so we view ourselves not as a replacement for lawyers, but as a solution for people who would otherwise be going without protection, because something is better than nothing. And we think our stuff is pretty good. We've worked very intently. When you use my software, you're getting agreements with language drafted by me, logic created by me, but customized by you for your particular business. And we've done as much as possible to take out the chances that you could make mistakes. That's one of the other big differences in the software versus our templates. With the templates, people could edit and change and do anything they wanted to, which was great, but it meant that people were afraid sometimes that they might mess something up. With the software, we try to make it so that you don't do that. You answer questions and it does most of the customization for you. You can still edit it, but we'll warn you if you're going to do something that might cause trouble too.
That is That's perfect. So when I think about, for instance, an example of the complexity really of some of the legal issues with online stuff, which I'm pretty savvy. I'm a CPA. I work with many lawyers. I teach workshops for business owners. I will say when you talk about the fact that they can't afford things, they not only can't afford things, they will choose not to spend the money because there are other things competing for that money. So I think your software is a first step in being able to see what kind of protection I need. But here's my question about one of the features. For example, you have a legal audit built in, which I love checklists and audits, being the CPA nerd that I am. And so I got this long list of things, but it was based on data I entered. So, for instance, if I want to use an online calculator, a profit calculator to help my clients play with their numbers, what if there was an agreement in there? I thought, I never heard of this. So, how can we prevent some of the mistakes that you see we make?
Yeah. So, and I think, let me step back, because a lot of people ask me, what's the biggest mistake that business owners make or online business owners make when it comes to legal stuff? And they want me to sometimes give a very concrete example. And I think the bigger kind of meta mistake, if you will, is that they're not thinking about the legal stuff and not recognizing that decisions that you're making on a regular basis have legal implications. And that's kind of the first level. And when I've interviewed people in my audience and asked them what a lot of people say for market research, the most important question, which is, what is the biggest pain point or frustration or struggle when you're trying to, and then you fill in what you do. And with me, it's with the legal stuff. And we actually heard the same phrase, exact same phrase from multiple people. And even people who didn't use this phrase, when you looked at their answer, they were saying the same thing. And that phrase is, I don't know what I don't know about the legal stuff. In other words, they have no idea what they even need to be thinking about. And so, kind of as you said, at that point, a lot of times they just say, I'm not going to worry about it. And some of that is a decision of, I'd rather spend my money, my time, et cetera, on marketing, on sales, et cetera. And some of it is lawyers have made this very difficult. There's a really stunning statistic that I discovered. I don't know if you know, but LegalZoom went public in about 2020 or 2021. And when you look at their data and then you look at other data, only 3% of legal service is delivered online. That compares to 40% of medical service and like 70% of financial services. With all due respect to my lawyer brethren, there is no reason that we can't be doing this and helping people as well. And so that's kind of what I've tried to do. And I've tried to help people do that. And so when you mentioned the audit, that was our attempt to help solve that first foundational problem. I don't know what I don't know about the legal stuff. And I said, hey, if we can give people, instead of saying, hey, go take a course or go read a bunch of stuff that's general, if we say, no, you provide information to us and our system will figure out what you need to do from that, that would allow them to actually kind of overcome that. And it was complicated. It requires a lot of logic and background of understanding how computer and computer science works, which I have enough knowledge to be dangerous, and combine that with my legal knowledge to be able to work with programmers to get this system to work.
Thank you for that. And isn't it true that some of the business owners, let's say you went through these templates or this legal audit, which is based on your own business model, you could actually take those drafts of agreements and then have a discussion with an attorney, because it will shorten the research time. It'll give you a clear question to ask. I think, can that help cut down on your costs by framing the right question?
Yeah, it definitely can. And so again, the first thing people need to know is they need to have enough knowledge to understand what they need to be thinking about. Because as I said, you're making legal decisions decisions all the time that have legal implications. So first off, the audit, once we're making that publicly available, which as we're recording this is hopefully in a couple of weeks, that's going to be absolutely free. You're not going to have to pay anything for that, because we think people ought to know what they need to deal with when it comes to legal stuff. Now, as to the agreements, yes, you could create agreements with our system and go take them to a lawyer. Now, I will caution you that you will have to find a lawyer who's open-minded, because there are some lawyers who will refuse and they'll say, no, I want to draft it from scratch. Now, in my view, whether that's a lawyer or anyone else, and I don't say this just as someone who obviously, I'm giving you these drafts. I wouldn't work with someone who took that approach, whether it's a lawyer, a CPA, or anyone else. If I brought you something, I would want you to say, hey, I can work with this. I can start this. And so you'll have to do that. But I will tell you, some lawyers will refuse, and that'll happen. But then you'd have to make the decision, do you want to work with that lawyer, or would you rather go try to find someone else? And part of this is the struggle that you have to deal with is that if you're building an online business based upon expertise, oftentimes you're doing things that have kind of a very weird combination of legal issues. There's contract law issues, there's business law issues, there's advertising and marketing law issues, there's privacy law issues, there's intellectual property law issues. There is all of this stuff wrapped up in what you're doing. And you have to find a lawyer who understands all of that, which can be a challenge. And that's some of the stuff you have to think about. I can tell a funny story. When I was first coming to prominence in the online world, it was back when GDPR, European law, was going into effect about privacy. And there were people who came to me because I kind of rose to a bit of online fame in some circles by doing some free training on that. And they came to me and were asking me questions. And one person literally told me she wanted to create an online course about how to create a maid service, like create a business as a maid. And went to a local lawyer who said, oh, you could never do that. Your potential liability would be so huge, because what if someone took this advice and somehow mixed chemicals wrong and killed themselves? And I was like looking, and I was like, wait, what? I mean, of all the things to worry about, that's not it. But it was this microcosm of like, some lawyers are so like, in their own world that they don't think about these things. And you have to be willing to kind of broaden your horizon and say, what's possible?
And they're in the protection business. And
Yeah.
so, that's what they do. But we're going to take a commercial break and come back and talk about business growth and strategy.